Welcome to the Mouse Bytes podcast. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Mouse Bytes, the show all about Disney video games, past and present. I am your host, Jeff, and I am joined by my faithful co-host, Clay. How you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm really excited about this week's game. I'll definitely say that.
Yeah. This is a good one. It's about time we finally get to talk about a Rare game on this show.
Yes.
We're both huge fans of them. And they didn't really make that many Disney games, so. But yeah, we've been doing way too many platformers, and that's mostly my fault. So it's about time that we covered something other than a platformer. So this will be a good one.
Yeah, it was. This is one I've wanted to do since we first started the show, and it was kind of one of those like this will be not a milestone game, but like a big one. And trying to decide when to do it, and it just, like you said, we were doing a lot of platformers and stuff like that, and it seemed like as good a choice as any to do now. So
totally.
As you've all probably seen by the title, it is Mickey Speedway USA, and we've specifically focused on the N64 one, although we'll talk a little bit about that in the What the Heck Is It, but there are two different versions. So do you want to talk a little bit about what the heck this game is?
Yes. So there are a number of Mickey racing games out there. I'm not sure, maybe you know if this is the first Mickey racing game or not. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm not positive. There's one for the PS1, and I don't know if it came out before or after, if it's actually a Mickey one. I've never played it.
Right. But yeah, so this is the response of popular games such as Mario Kart, and Diddy Kong Racing was out before this, right?
Yeah.
And so this was kind of at this point all the kart racers were pretty popular. Excuse me. And so this was kind of Disney's kart racer of sorts. It's very similar to most kart racers. You got your items and your goofy hijinks, and it was, like I mentioned, it was created by Rare, British, developers, worked with a ton of different properties and made all kinds of games. They had made a few Disney games in the past, if I'm correct in thinking so. Like, didn't they make some NES games, maybe?
They definitely did Roger Rabbit, which is technically a Disney game, so there's at least that. I'm actually not 100% sure because they did a lot of NES games, and I'm not as familiar with those. But there's a good chance that they did a few back then.
Yeah, we'll just say Roger Rabbit. How about
that?
For
sure, that. Yeah,
because we know that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's your typical kart racer, I guess you could say. There's not a lot of other games to really confuse it with. I know that there's another Game Boy Color game besides this one.
Yeah, Mickey's Racing Adventure.
Yeah, that's it. And so, other than that, I'm not entirely sure what else you would get it confused with. You did mention there was another Mickey Racing game, maybe for the PS1. Other than that,
yeah,
it pretty much stands out on its own. The title USA kind of makes it unique to itself because it has to do with the gameplay and the levels and all that. But other than that, this game did release November 13th of 2000 in the United States. There was other months for other countries, but all, I think, within 2000. And so this game did come out, like Jeff said, on the N64 and the Game Boy Color. I played a little bit of the Game Boy Color one today, but didn't spend a whole lot of time with it. I own both versions too. I think I have the Game Boy Color one downstairs. So
nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually played the Game Boy Color version. I've only seen it played on like YouTube. So at some point I want to check that out, and I don't know if we'll revisit it down the road when we're starting to run out of other titles, but
Yeah.
it exists.
Totally.
One thing to note about this game was at the time that it was created, Disney and Nintendo had entered into a 7-game contract, and this was the first game. And at the time, Nintendo Power was reporting that all of them would go through Rare, but I don't know if that was technically one of the stipulations or if it was just Nintendo could choose. But at the time, I was a huge Disney fan, as we've talked about, and I was a huge Rare fan, as we've talked about, and I couldn't believe that they were going to be making 7 Disney games. Ultimately, Rare made 3, as we mentioned. There was all 3 racing games, 2 for the Game Boy Color. So not the most fruitful endeavor there. And then Nintendo published one more after this that I can recall, which was the Magical Mirror on the GameCube, but that was developed, I believe, by Capcom. So that's a fun little tidbit about that, and
Nice.
where this all kind of stemmed from. Another little development note is that it was built on the Diddy Kong Racing engine, which was also the Jet Force Gemini engine, 2 other Rare games from 1997 and 1999.
Yeah,
I can kind of get into it a little more, but I felt like it was a step backwards from Diddy Kong Racing. But
yeah, I guess I didn't know for sure that it was on that engine.
Yeah.
But I just kind of assumed that it was.
I've seen it reported. I don't have the source, but there's really no reason why it shouldn't be,
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So jumping into the history with the game, I'll just kind of lead with that. I got this game, I believe, for Christmas that year that it came out, if not, because Banjo-Tooie came out the same month, like almost the same week. I might have gotten Banjo-Tooie for Christmas and then gotten this for my birthday, which is a month later. Pretty high likelihood that was the way it went, but not 100% sure on that. But either way, I got it, around that time, winter 2000, 2001, and played the heck out of it. I never 100%ed it, but got pretty close to. I've unlocked all the characters except for one, and we'll get into that down the road. And not to make a road pun. And yeah, I continue to play it periodically. I like to bust it out on like 4th of July or whatever, just because it's got USA in the title. Not a totally annual tradition, but like on one of the other podcasts we did it last year, didn't we? No, that was Cruising USA.
I know what you're thinking of, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not even Cruising USA. Rush 2, Extreme
Rush
Racing
2.
USA.
That was
Good
it.
Lord.
That's been a
And
while.
I am wide awake. Yeah. Okay. What is your history with it? I know you kind of mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, not a lot, unfortunately. This was not a game I owned back in the N64 era, and unfortunately, yeah, I just didn't have it. My parents bought me Mario Kart, and they even bought me Diddy Kong Racing, so maybe in their heads they're like, they're good on kart racers.
Yeah.
And so never had it. Honestly, hadn't really even heard a whole lot about it back then. It wasn't until a few years ago when I first met you that you wouldn't shut up about it, and I was like, wow, this must be a decent game. And so finally came across a copy out in the wild and decided, all right, yeah, I should definitely pick this up. It's Rare, it's Disney, like what's not to love? And so I remember taking it home. This was like a year or two ago, and put it in and played the first level, and I was like, wow, actually this controls really well and plays really well. And I just remember thinking, it controls just like Diddy Kong Racing. So I was happy with it. I expected it was going to be bad just because I hadn't heard a whole lot, and it was just another kart racer. But shame on me for ever assuming that Rare would put out a bad game, I guess. Maybe I kind of thought that it was just kind of their, like, not even their B team, but maybe their C team that put this together. And I honestly don't even know what developers are.
Yes, it would have been. Yeah.
Okay.
What was their C team?
Yeah, and so I guess I just assumed it wasn't going to be that great. But yeah, I had low expectations going in, and I honestly walked away pretty happy with it. Didn't play it a ton, and then I picked it back up just recently, just in preparation for the show. Played quite a bit more of it and got a bit further into the game, and kind of got to see a little bit more of what it had. I like to say I dove deeper into it, but you can really only go so deep if you ask me, but got to play it a little bit more. So I'm still pretty much a newbie. This is totally Jeff's baby. He loves it, and I respect that. Like, I think it's a good game. And so he's the pro, and I'm kind of the guy who's just, I know it, but I don't know it like this guy does. So just wanted to throw that out there going forward.
Alrighty. And with that, we are going to jump into the game itself. All right, so here's the part where we do the gameplay discussion. We'll talk a little bit about the visuals, the audio, the gameplay and difficulty itself, the story, and then kind of the components of the game. This one mostly focusing probably on the tracks. So to lead off, we'll start with the visuals, and definitely say that I, for one, am a big fan of the visuals of this game. I remember at the time that it came out, it was a pretty big deal having revolving around Mickey's ears, because there'd been a couple other 3D versions of Mickey Mouse that had been done that they hadn't figured out what to do with his ears, because in 2D, Mickey's ears are always on the top and back of his head if he's profile, and then they're equally symmetrical on the top of his head if he's facing the front. And it just wasn't something that was easily achievable in 3D at the time. You know, it was still a pretty new thing. I mean, it was less than a decade, really, into the 3D video game space, at least. And so Rare had figured out how to use, I guess, sprites, little circles, to rotate them, map them to Mickey's head, and keep him looking the way he's supposed to look in his 2D way in a 3D space. So yeah, that's my number one thing that I like to go to. Beyond that, I really like the texture work in this game. It's got a very unique painted looking art style, and the character models, in my opinion, are all pretty spot on. What are your observations with the visuals of this game?
Yeah, I agree. I think the character models look great. I think I only played as Donald and Goofy so far, so I didn't fully try them all out, but you know, when you're racing, you're driving by them and stuff, so you kind of get a good eye on them. So I'm really bad at noticing this, but the opponents that you're racing against are 2D sprites, correct?
That was a good question. I don't think so. I think like the carts might be, but the models themselves are not. That's a
yeah,
question,
I always
actually.
suck
I'm not
at being
sure.
able to differentiate between them. I think your driver is a 3D model, but I think the opponents aren't. But I could be wrong.
Interesting.
But regardless,
I'm looking at some footage right now, and it looks like that might actually be the case. It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I was getting at. Is it doesn't really matter. I think it all looks really good.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to the art direction, that they can merge the 3D and the sprites and make it a little more difficult to tell.
Yeah, totally. Because I know in Mario Kart for the 64, they're all just 2D
Very
sprites.
blatantly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's real flat, and so these at least just give off the impression that they aren't, even if they might be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I think maybe the frame and the character of your character are 3D, and maybe even the opponents, and then like the wheels look to be sprites. But
yeah, I could
it's
see
pretty
that.
pretty hard to tell. Diddy Kong Racing, I know, used that methodology, so it's fair to assume that they use the same idea with this one, but don't have any insider info on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think the levels look really good. I think they did a good job with the texture work to make sure that you didn't just have super repetitive levels where they use a lot of, this is stone, this is brick. They did a good job.
Distinct.
Yeah, trying to keep it so that everything didn't feel the same. And that's a thing that I find a lot of N64 games do, especially racing games, is it's just a lot of the same textures over and over. And so I appreciate that. Everything kind of has that cartoony feel. road signs are kind of crooked and kind of loosely
very Toontown.
Right, exactly. Yeah, very Toontown. They added landmarks and things in the background.
Yes.
So yeah, it's all very cartoony and goofy. Like the item barrels that you collect bounce up and down, and so I like that. The text on the menus is like moving all over the place.
Yeah, and it's like the classic Disney curved font.
Yep.
Looks cool.
I think the only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the heads up display, or kind of the interface, all this
in game or the menu, like the main menu.
In game, I guess.
Okay. It's very busy.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on, and I get that there's information they need to show you, but I don't need to know all 3 of my lap times while I'm racing.
That's true.
But the menu is interesting, though. Did you want to maybe touch on that real quick?
Yeah, let's go into that. In my opinion, in true Rare fashion, because if you look at the other games that came out around this time, Banjo-Tooie and Conker's Bad Fur Day, the front end menu, the main menu, is like a fully interactive 3D environment, and your camera moves around the environment as you go through menu options. In this case, you're in Mickey's house, and there's like blocks stacked, and going around this tower of blocks gets you different menu items, which is super creative and unique in my opinion. It's like they didn't have to do that. They could have done just your classic text menu like anybody else did, but
yeah,
this is a testament to Rare, especially Rare at that time, although to this day they continue that even with their latest game.
Totally.
It's just another above and beyond step that adds polish to the game and makes it feel like a full package. Interestingly enough, and we can at least touch on this in the graphics and get more into it in the story, but the story is completely presented as like static windows on a PC monitor display, and like you or Ludwig von Drake like clicking through them. It's a little odd, and I don't want to say lazy, but like I think the story definitely is forced upon this game.
Yeah,
and we'll go into that more as we get to the story section. But it looks appealing and it's well done. It's just maybe like a little weird.
And different. I guess it's cool that there's not a lot of games probably at this time where it's all laid out in a computer kind of thing where you're clicking different windows and stuff. So maybe that gives it some plus, I guess.
Maybe it was a modern feel because that was the beginning of the internet age, really.
Right.
And then a couple other touches within the world levels. One specifically that stood out to me was the Everglades level, where you drive by essentially Kennedy Space Center, and on the first lap you see a rocket, a space shuttle on the launching pad, and on lap 2 as you pass it actually launches in front of you.
Nice.
And the screen shakes and all that. It's a nice little visual effect. Reminds me kind of Pilot Wings 64. I don't know if you ever did the USA level where the space shuttle takes off.
Oh yeah,
definitely of that.
Yeah, they definitely threw a lot of interesting things into each level to make it, it's not just a generic, this is Las Vegas, so there's casinos. Like there's actually some like recognizable like signs, and Seattle has the Space Needle, and so I don't know. They put in a little extra effort to make it actually remind you or look like an actual landmark from that city. So some cool visual things there, definitely.
And to me, that's all the more impressive. And I promise this is my last thing before we move on. In that, at the time, this is made by Rare, a British studio, and I've definitely seen interviews with people who worked there at that time saying that they didn't have internet access really in studio. So you got to think that all this research was either done with the help from Nintendo or just researching encyclopedic stuff. The old school way. So it's documentaries maybe, I don't know, like it's really that much more impressive to me.
Totally.
Just based on the culture of the world at the time. It wasn't quite as connected as it is today, and easy to go on a YouTube helicopter tour of every city in America, because I've never tried that, but I'll bet you that it's possible.
I'm sure it's there.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I got for graphics and visuals.
Yeah, my final thoughts visually, I just think I think it's great. I think the cart has its own little movements and wiggles and jiggles and stuff, and I
Mhm.
think that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
good little details. Nothing like over the top, like blows your mind, but
Yeah.
but nothing that even to this day I feel like it aged pretty well, all
Yeah.
things considered. At least as far as the console goes.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think visually it's not a bad looking game.
Agreed.
So.
All right. With that, we will jump into audio next. For me, the audio of this game has two main components: the music and the voice work. And
Definitely.
the music, in my opinion, is good, but it seems sometimes a little samey, even though I think each course has a unique track. I don't know. What are your initial thoughts on the music of the game?
Yeah, I wasn't blown away with it. I was curious what your thoughts were because I know you've played it more, so I
Yeah.
thought maybe if you play it longer, it would kind of like grow on you. But yeah, I wasn't blown away, and like I think even at one point, my wife was sitting there watching me play it, and she was saying something about how like I kind of wish this was just Mickey music or Disney music.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, let's make this sound like a casino song.
I would
I
have
don't
loved
know.
to, had like kind of the old shorts music, kind of that style. Like
Right.
maybe not Steamboat Willie per se, but like the music that accompanied like the Silly Symphonies and the old Mickey cartoons would have been cool.
Yeah.
In and of itself, I don't think any of it's bad, but none of it's very safe and kind of generic. None of it's catchy. I don't ever find myself humming any tunes from this game. And when I do, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you which track it's from. They all sound pretty similar, which is unfortunate. The music for this game was done by Ben Cullum. This was his only full soundtrack that I'm aware of at Rare.
Yeah.
And
Did he work on anything else with?
he did a lot of the sound design on other games, and I think he might have even done some voice work in like Perfect Dark.
Okay.
And other stuff
Nice.
around that time. He was on the audio team. But
Yeah.
this is the only one that I'm aware that he composed. He may have done some Game Boy ones, but
Okay.
yeah, of their main releases, the console releases, it's the only one he did.
Okay.
And he's not even in the video game industry anymore. He's in the straight up music industry. I think he produces for like his brother, the pretty famous musician.
Huh.
I did a
Nice.
little research on him. Seems like a cool guy though. The other side of the audio is the voice interactions, the voice acting. And in my opinion, some people say it's really annoying, and I think as it's aged, it's not as good as it was at the time. But at the time that this came out, this was one of the more impressive audio achievements in that every character is uniquely voiced with multiple sayings, and they're all character specific. And that
Mhm.
was a huge deal at the time. I remember IGN's coverage of it was like highlighted that immensely.
Yeah.
Was that something, having not grown up with it, did you find it a little redundant and annoying, or did you think it was cool? Like, what was your kind of take on that?
Definitely at first I noticed it because like I was doing things and I was hearing these, specific sayings toward me or toward others.
Mhm.
And so almost immediately I noticed, wow, this is really cool actually. Like that's really neat that I heard Minnie shot Mickey and then passed him. And instead of being mad, Mickey was like, "Ha, good shot, Minnie," and
Yeah.
like wasn't even mad. But then I did it a second later, and he was like, "Donald," like all mad at me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Whoa, that's so cool!" Like everybody kind of has their own thing that they say to each other, and it like knows the relationships and stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, as I kept playing, it did get a little bit more annoying.
Yeah.
I noticed just the repetitiveness and how often it happens
Yeah.
did become a little much, but that being said, I still thought it was super cool, and I could see how back in 2000 that would be like a pretty cool thing to highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Just how they made that work.
It was super dynamic. Like, it was based not only on character to character, but also what place you were in. So like you were saying, Mickey in first place getting shot by Minnie, it's not that big a deal. But if you're in like 7th place and the 8th place person shoots you, it's a little more disparaging and like a little more frustrated. And like even
Nice.
when you finish a race, like how your character reacts, Like if you're in second or third, it's like, oh, I'll do better next time. But if you're in last, like, oh, it's like there's a lot of that. But again, on the flip side, like I don't know how many times I've heard Pete say, "I'll still win." So, limitation of, I think, the cartridge hardware, that they couldn't put as many varieties as they probably would have wanted to, but very impressive tech in my opinion, and kind of
definitely
it's lost in the depths of time, just being a late generation N64 game and all that. But other than that, the sound effects are pretty good. I like the cart noises and the all the item noises. They're all satisfactory. I don't think anything really stood out. I like when you shoot the little airplane, it's like but,
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
One other thing about the voice acting probably worth noting is that, as far as I can tell, these are all the voice actors for those characters, at least at that point.
Yep.
Notably, you had Jim Cummings doing Pete, which is just always great. I don't know most of the
Bill
he's kind
Farmer. Yeah, Bill Farmer did Goofy. Wayne. Oh, I forgot his name, but the guy who played Mickey up until his death shortly thereafter.
Right.
And Russie Taylor, who still does Minnie, and amazingly. So yeah, it was all the original voice actors at the time, which is
and
awesome.
so. Yeah, this would have tanked without that. Like, I think that if you're going to do voice, and you got to have those.
I don't think Disney would have let it happen.
Actors.
Yeah,
right.
I'm curious how if they recorded it in L.A. and then sent it over to Rare, or like I said, like internet wasn't super prominent back then, so they might have flown them out to the brand new Rare headquarters that had opened that year. Who knows?
Right. That would be my guess. I assume they probably didn't go out there and record.
Probably not. That would be really expensive. Worst case, put it on a CD and FedEx it, right?
Right. But yeah, so I just love that. I was super stoked to hear all, because it's one thing to have grunts and woos and all that stuff, but this was, full lines. And this is an N64 game, and those games weren't really known to have a lot of voice acting in them.
Not really.
Especially compared to what the PlayStation could do. And so, luckily, I think because this is a kart game, they were able to probably fit a lot more on there.
Yeah,
whereas if it were like a big platforming game that, spans all these giant areas, maybe they wouldn't have as much room.
Yep.
But yeah, so the audio in this is definitely strong, at least on the voice acting side.
Yeah. So. Agreed. Alrighty. So next section we'll cover is going to be the gameplay and then the difficulty along with that. Why don't you lead this one off? What did you think of the gameplay? I think you kind of touched on it earlier.
So as I mentioned, it's your typical kart racer. You've got like 4 levels per race. We can go into those levels and how they're formatted in a minute, but basically you select a race and you pick a difficulty. You have 3 difficulties. I believe it's amateur, intermediate, and
professional.
Maybe.
Yeah, I actually don't remember the ranks.
Professional. You're right. Yep,
okay.
It's professional.
Good.
And so I think today when I was playing, I was mostly doing intermediate, and then I got to which one was it? Freeway Phobia, and I did the first race, which I think is Dakota, one of the Dakotas.
Yeah, it might be Seattle, but yeah.
No, it was one that was like really short.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
And I kept getting 6th place, and I was like, all right,
dang.
Clearly the difficulty is ramped up, and so I went down to amateur. Okay. But what I noticed, and what I assume most kart racers do, is the difficulty is all based around how fast you're going.
Yeah, the 50cc, 100cc, whatever. Yeah.
Right, which as a kid I never noticed that about Mario Kart. It wasn't until I got older.
Same.
Okay, good. And so, but yeah, making that switch down from intermediate to amateur today, it was like, we were just chugging along.
It's so true.
And so that was kind of rough, but basically you do 3 laps. In that time, obviously you wanna stay, in the top places. Actually, I don't think this fails you out if you get less than under third, right? You keep going.
Yeah, I think it does a running point tally, and it doesn't like eliminate you or anything.
Right. And so
Not 100%
while
sure on
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it was.
that. Okay.
So while you're racing, you are collecting these things called tokens. You can. This says you can get 3 tokens maximum that increase your speed. But I was getting like 11 or
like
more
high numbers. Yeah, same.
So I thought it was like Mario Kart where you get coins and it helps you get faster. But then once you hit a certain thing, it stops or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I guess I don't fully understand how the tokens worked.
I
But they're
don't
everywhere.
either. I've never noticed a difference. Even in Mario Kart with like getting coins, I've never noticed that much of a difference to make it worth it.
Right.
Because the items pretty much negate that anyway.
Totally. Yeah, and so as you're going through, there's certain things you can drive over. There's boosts, but then the big thing are items, which are located in these barrels, which I guess is the best thing they could think of to put them in.
Yeah.
That was one thing I was thinking today. I'm like, really, barrels?
Right.
I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything better, but if I had a team of 3 people, I'm sure I could come up with something better than
something more themed.
barrels.
Yeah, there's like these blue bouncing question mark barrels.
Yeah. Do you want to go? You want to read through the items real quick?
Yeah.
Do you have that handy?
I do.
Okay.
So the token is the one separate from the item barrels, but then there's the sprinter. Although I hear it when Ludwig von Drake says it, I hear spritzer. That one is your classic. It's like the mushroom in Mario Kart. It's your classic speed boost. Then there's shield shell, which is similar to the star in Mario Kart, where it kind of lets you go off terrain and bounce off people and stuff and become invulnerable. Paint splotcher is like a banana peel kind of. This one's more like the oil slick in Diddy Kong Racing, but it basically just leaves a glob of gook in the track that people run over and spin out. Baseball chucker is like a green shell. It's a non-homing projectile. What's really crazy is that it doesn't just make the other characters spin out. It like destroys their vehicles and blows their wheels off.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
But it looks really cool. The tracer chaser, or the trace chaser, is like the red shell. It follows the person ahead and takes them out. Magnaflyer is similar to that. Maybe like more like the blue shell. I don't know that it goes to the first place person, but it definitely flies and hits them without getting obstructed by anything on the course. And then Stormy Weather, which is similar to the Lightning Bolt. I didn't realize how similar these all were to Mario Kart.
Yeah.
They're straight rip-offs. That's unfortunate. Like they couldn't come up with more original kart items. Again, playing it safe, and this was probably produced on a pretty short time schedule. Actually, we know it was because the team that made it in a year, because Jet Force Gemini came out a year before. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, that's it. Those are your items, and they work. They're just like the ones in Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else gameplay-wise? There's a drift when you hold down R, just like most other kart games, and then there's the B brake. And if you do R and B, you can do like hairpin turns, which is kind of a pro move that was definitely present in Diddy Kong Racing as well. Do you ever use that where you use R and B at the same time to just kind of turn on a dime?
No.
Okay.
I haven't.
It's one of those things that I picked up in like an expert gamer as like a hot tip back in like 97 or 98 when Diddy Kong Racing was popular, and I tested it and it worked in this one. It actually works in the newest Mario Kart 8, so it's kind of cool that Nintendo adopted it. Yeah, so there's that.
Cool.
Yeah. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to the gameplay. There's no, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 jumps in the levels, but they're not anything spectacular. And then no real airborne hovercraft. Anything like that was featured in Diddy Kong Racing, which, again, at the time I kind of thought this would build off of Diddy Kong Racing, but it's pretty much straight kart racer.
Yeah.
There's some narrow shortcuts. There's your classic,
Mm-hmm.
cut through this corner here and go through a secret tunnel. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. The only thing I have to add is the the drifting or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You can spin out if you do it too much.
Oh, interesting. I don't know that I remember that.
Yeah,
I've done it.
I didn't think it was the case, and then all of a sudden I was like spamming it, and it started having me spin out or whatever. Which
that's unfortunate.
is that in Diddy Kong Racing? Because I don't remember.
No,
that.
I don't
And
believe so. I don't remember.
I know it is in Mario Kart 64, but
yeah.
I thought Rare didn't do it, and then I went and tried it today, and I spun out if I held it too long, and that was kind of just disappointing to me.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
I don't either.
Yeah,
and that's been done away with in most modern kart racers anyway.
Right. And you also don't get any boost from drifting either, which is
kind of unfortunate.
A newer thing that kart racers have adopted. But
although technically Mario Kart 64 did have that, you just had to wiggle the stick.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't very intuitive.
It was not at all. Most people didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So standard kart racer. So from there, I think we can jump into the story, if you want to call it that, as we alluded to earlier. Yeah, so the story of this game, let me give you the synopsis. I'm just going to read it straight off this website. Mickey Mouse's dog Pluto is kidnapped by the weasels for his diamond collar, later found out to be fake. As one of the drivers, including Disney characters such as Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and Pete, those are the core characters, the player races on tracks in the United States based on locations, all the ones that we'll talk about shortly hereafter, to try and track down the weasels, and the story is spelled out through that computer screen we talked about earlier. Basically shows a map of the USA and the weasels going from city to city and you chasing them. I think the idea here is that you're in your cart chasing the weasels, but then suddenly you're just racing against the other characters who are your allies. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, you should either be racing against the weasels or which would be kind of boring.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they slapped a story on it and it's almost tongue in cheek, I think. Rare was very well known for doing it. So was Nintendo for just corny, very straightforward stories. So, definitely not going to win any sort of Pulitzer Prize for writing or anything. The little animated, I don't know what I specifically touched on this. There's kind of like full graphic, like hand-drawn cells, like comic frames in the storytelling. They're like postcards maybe. I'm trying to remember it now at this point. So those are interesting to look at, I guess, to a degree. Some original artwork.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think those look cool.
They're pretty pixelated on modern TVs, but at the time on a regular CRT TV, they looked pretty good. But other than that, there's not much more to the story. You essentially go through each level. You, I guess part of the story is collecting these parts. There's these 4 car parts that are hidden in just 4 random levels, and the game doesn't give you any hints at all about where they're at or what levels. I think it's just that one per circuit or per 4 races.
Right.
And so those are located on, Indianapolis, which is the first level of the game. So it's kind of like, okay, we'll let you explore this level. It's pretty straightforward, not quite oval. And then the groundwork to explore the other levels is there. The next one's in Philadelphia, then Chicago and Malibu. And they're pretty tricky to find if you don't have a guide. I'm kind of guessing that you probably didn't even do those. Is that?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, and unfortunately, 4 levels are locked behind getting those. And again, the game doesn't give you any hand-holding or hints or anything. It just tells you need to find them. Yeah, so in my opinion, a little bit of a steep difficulty spike at the end to unlock the true ending, I guess. I don't remember if there's any sort of credits after the 4th set of 4. The first 16 races are the defaults, and then the last 4 are, the frantic finale is what it's called. Which has Hawaii, Oregon, Texas, and Colorado. So
nice.
Yeah. That kind of rounds out the story, I guess. Then you finish those and then you beat the game. But yeah. Not much else. I think we can move on.
Okay.
So yeah, next we can kind of just go into the levels, or do you want to discuss anything?
Yeah, I
else?
mean, I guess the only thing is, and I'm confused about this, so maybe you can explain it to me. But basically, when you boot up the game, you select a character, and then it kicks you to the the menu that you were talking about,
Yeah.
where you have the building blocks or whatever, and so each world or Grand Prix, whatever you want to call it, has its own name, which we're about to go through.
Yep.
And so you just play through them, and then it unlocks more of them.
Yeah, I think it's like I think the first 3 are unlocked from the get-go. So,
right.
And then that unlocks the 4th one, and then after you beat the 4th one and find all the car parts, then you can unlock the 5th one.
Okay.
And then I think it starts at like you have to. Well, you might know more than me. I haven't had a fresh save file in a while, but does it start with only amateur unlocked, or is all 3, or maybe
all 3
okay
are available?
So you can kind of choose your difficulty. I guess that's good. It's probably good to keep it accessible for younger players for sure.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is it was just kind of confusing.
Sure.
I wasn't sure because there's like a couple different like options at the beginning to pick what you want to do.
Yeah.
And when you see traffic troubles, I don't know what that means.
Right.
And then there's like motorway mania. Is that a level or is that a game mode? And so there was just a little bit of confusion up front. Exactly. And I just kind of went with the option that it first presented me, assuming that would be the storyline
to start the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I guess that's one thing I'm thinking about is just kind of, I don't know, a little bit of a negative to it.
Yeah, I would imagine this is sort of a product of its time where games came with instruction booklets, and I'm pretty sure the instruction booklet kind of laid that out.
Right.
What each thing was. It's like, oh, these are the level Grand Prix, whatever you want to call them, the groupings of levels. I don't know. It's a good point though. It's not intuitive if you're just booting up the game.
Yeah.
And you're right. It does present you with a lot of stuff and a lot of freedom that maybe you don't necessarily need.
Yes.
Because Mario Kart.
Sorry, okay.
No, Mario Kart like presents it very straightforward. Like this is the Mushroom Cup, and you start here, and you've got these 3 cups, and you can unlock the special cup. But it's a little more, and that's maybe a drawback to the more creative front end menu, in that it's not as intuitive. But there's that. So speaking of those levels, let's just kind of talk through what each one is, and maybe a highlight of each one. I think we can go through these pretty quickly.
Okay.
So it starts out with traffic troubles. And the first course, perhaps one dear to your heart, is Indianapolis.
Woo! Yeah. Go Indy.
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. It's meant to look like the Indy Speedway, I think. Or, at least allude to the tradition of Indianapolis 500 and all that. Definitely not meant to be verbatim by any stretch of the imagination, but it's whatever. It's a nice intro level. It's not quite an oval, but pretty close to an oval. I think there's like a blimp in the sky, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
there is. It says Disney on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Disney blimp. Everybody loves the Disney blimp.
Heck yeah. So pretty straightforward race course. And then the next one is San Francisco. This one I like a lot. It has some fog, and you can see the Golden Gate Bridge. Has some elevation changes, which is pretty cool. Some steep hills, which is, indicative of or representative of what San Francisco is like to a degree. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Totally.
Then New Mexico, which that one's kind of like a desert-looking level. It's kind of in like the Grand Canyon looking. I think it's supposed to be the Grand Canyon, right? Seems like it is. Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Like I think that's definitely meant to be the Grand Canyon. So that's pretty cool. Deserty canyon cliffside. But it's none of the tracks are. Well, this track isn't super narrow, so it's not like super perilous. You never feel like you're gonna fall off a cliff. I don't think in this one. So that, and then weird. The next one is the Grand Canyon. So I guess it's to. Oh no, I am looking at the Grand Canyon. My footage. I must be missing something here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Trying to scroll through a 4-hour video.
Well, and I was gonna say, I was like, I don't think the Grand Canyon is in New Mexico, but
yeah, I feel it's like Arizona, Nevada, right? I don't know. It's in that area. Okay, no, I was looking at footage of the Grand Canyon one. So the New Mexico one is more of like this desert oasis with waterfalls.
Right.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just was looking at the wrong footage because
You're good.
It looked right. Yeah, this one's got like some rocky hillsides and then some weird waterfalls. I'm not super familiar with New Mexico. I don't know if this is supposed to look like Santa Fe. But then it goes into like a swamp. Or like it kind of looks like a swamp and then out into a cliffside. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to it, actually. It's just but then the Grand Canyon one, like I said, looks like the Grand Canyon. Do you want to walk us through the next cup? Or whatever?
Yes. Motorway Mania.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting that off is Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to remember which one that one was. Because I remember the Las Vegas level.
Okay, yeah, this one's kind of grassy. It's got some palm trees and like the LA skyline. I think it's that you're racing on like the I-5 freeway or one of the main freeways.
Right.
And then you kind of pass the beach. There's a little beach house and some sand and life preservers.
Yeah, there's like a lot of air pollution in this level.
Something like that, or maybe it's sunset.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know.
Smog test.
Smogs. Yeah, it's a strict figure 8. It's a very straightforward level.
Yeah.
What's cool is that you kind of pass by the cliffs of Malibu, and then that turns out to be a level later, which we'll talk about. So I thought that was kind of cool. It is weird to have two levels like kind of not just in the same state, but like literally in the same city. Like Malibu's part of LA for all intents and purposes. Right. So I thought that was weird. It's also weird.
Scraping.
Yeah, it's also weird that
some
of them are states and some of them are cities. And it's maybe not like super weird, but just kind of inconsistent. It's not that big a deal.
Silly British people.
Anyway, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
No, you're good. So then following that is where am I at? Alaska.
Yeah.
Which has lots of snow.
Yeah.
And it's icy. Certain parts of the track are more snowy than they are icy, and so you kind of have to go around those. I'm trying to think what else.
It's like that you go through a ski lodge or something, but Alaska's not super well known for its skiing, so this one may just kind of be the stereotype passing through. There's this ice tunnel where you have like a crisscross where I feel like there's like crossing paths where you can run into other players. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Visually a good level though. Lots of like turquoise blue and road signs that have like crazy road squiggly lines.
Yeah, dangerous road ahead. Yeah.
And kind of gives off the vibe of like I forget what it is. Like the ski resort, I know you already kind of said that, but from like the water park at Disney,
Blizzard Beach, it does kind of
Blizzard
like
Beach kind of has that the whole goofy skiing kind of feel,
Yep, totally.
Kind of makes me think of that. So
yeah,
but kind of other than that, not a whole lot of iconic parts of this level. I think the figure 8 thing you mentioned is probably the biggest part of that. So following that is Las Vegas.
Another one dear to your heart.
Yes, another city I've lived in. The Golden Strip, as some call it. Really just one person. But so this one's interesting. It starts off in downtown, some form of downtown Las Vegas, and then it kind of goes out to the middle of the boring part of Nevada, where there's not a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
And there's like a gas station, and then you pass this giant hole in the road, and then you're back into these casinos and everything. And then at one point you actually drive through kind of like a hotel casino lobby.
Yep.
This level is pretty cool actually. I appreciate how they did it. Visually it's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're driving through that lobby, it's just a lot. But I think that is completely how Las Vegas is, where it's just so much to take in and so many lights and things. So it actually works really well.
Yeah,
so.
I like the contrast of the desert. It's just this dark, it's nighttime sky and a big moon right as you come out of the city, and then there's just some sand dunes to your left and some like cliffs to your right. So kind of cool. and then you
Yeah.
can see like the light of the Luxor as you come back into the town. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that I noticed that too. I'm like, oh, that's a nice little
Yeah.
touch, because anybody who lives in Vegas
Yep.
knows you can see that beam from pretty much anywhere
Yeah.
in the city. So,
Oh, yeah.
And then the final level for this one is Philadelphia, which is at a like shipping yard full of shipping containers and ships, and there's some interesting things here. There's some like cranes that drop these big crates,
Mhm.
so you kind of have to look out for those, and you go in and out of these big ships, and there's little things you have to avoid that are in your way.
Yep.
I don't know. Is Philadelphia well known for?
I see. I was just
ports
thinking that.
and-
Like, I didn't even know Philadelphia was a port town. I would have thought this would be Boston.
Right.
I would put Philadelphia. I would have done like Independence Hall in downtown. You know, like
Yeah.
that's what I would have done. I found it really weird to have a USA themed game and not have Independence Hall, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They're British.
Yeah, we forgive you. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that one.
Yeah. All right. So then the next cup or whatever we'll call it is Freeway Phobia. It starts off in Dakota, one you were talking about earlier. This one, if I'm looking at the right footage, hopefully I am. Yeah, it does. Okay, so this one is kind of this barren cliffside, but then you have, instead of Mount Rushmore, Mickey Moore. That was really cool. It's a very large set piece.
Yeah.
It has got, I don't know, I don't have it up on screen, but it's like Mickey's head and, here we go, Mickey and Donald and Goofy. Yeah, that's all.
It's so big you can't even see
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Um,
You barely catch it when you drive by.
Yeah, and then you go through like a mine shaft into kind of like a sequoia desert, which looks, or not desert, forest, which is kind of, yeah, I mean, there's some foresty stuff. It's kind of like Montana. So not a whole lot to it. You go across a bridge and then back into the mines. So
Yeah, that level's really short and
It is.
and not very long.
No.
I remember
Yep.
thinking that. So
yep. And then the next one is Seattle.
woot woot.
Yeah. I grew up in Washington State, so it's my hometown, big city. Also where Nintendo and all that is headquartered, so it's kind of,
That's right.
you know, had to include Seattle. It's got the Space Needle. It's at nighttime. You go through some of the sewers underneath it. I don't know. Seattle's really known for
Yeah.
underground sewers. You also go through a parking garage that Seattle's definitely known for because it's a very vertical city, very compact. Not a whole lot else to that level, in my opinion. It's kind of go through some streets, go through some sewers, go through a parking garage, and repeat.
Yeah, there's like some weird shop signs in this level.
Yeah, it's pretty neon.
Yeah, lots of like a little neon district, and there's like a toy, like there's something about like some of them are in like
Kebab.
straight other. EB is one of them with an American flag.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Toys R
that.
Us looking thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
there's
know.
like a bunch of Asian or looking fonts.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember that part of Seattle, but
Eh.
whatever.
Seattle does have a pretty big Asian influence, kind of like San
Yeah.
Francisco. The West Coast towns tend to here because of the railroad industry. But yeah, I don't know. The driving through the sewer part I thought was kind of random.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a pretty short level as well. It's like literally downtown Seattle, parking garage, sewer, and then just loops back. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Next level after that is New York. This one, it's a pretty cool level, I thought. You kind of start, I think, on like a Brooklyn Bridge type thing. It's got the Statue of Liberty, which is meant to look like Minnie on the left, and then this one you also go through a sewer. This one maybe even more so supposed to be a subway tunnel, maybe.
Yeah.
And then turn down in like uptown or downtown Manhattan or Brooklyn or whatever. This part I like because it's just a lot of building facades. It feels very much like you're in the middle of a city. The
Totally.
distant background is some taller buildings, and then there's lots of them just lining the side of the road. So
Yeah.
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 Uh,
Visually a cool level.
Yeah, I like it. And then the last one in this group is Chicago. This one's interesting, and actually I think Chicago might have the most unique sound music of all of them, or it uses like the drips of like underwater pipes or something, like as part of the beat of the music.
Nice. That's cool.
I think it's maybe, to me, the one that does stand out, because I was saying earlier none of them really do, but this one maybe more than the others. Another one where you're just racing through the sewers through most of it. Like almost all of it. I don't know what this has to do with Chicago at all, honestly. I would have thought more of like outside Chicago with the elevated rail cars, like subways, whatever you call them. To me, that's what I always think of for Chicago. This one is literally just, I think it's entirely in a sewer. You know, because maybe Al Capone, right? Wasn't he in Chicago?
Maybe.
Hideout?
I
don't know.
They're struggling, man, because they did Seattle, New York, and Chicago back to back in this one.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't just keep doing cities.
Yeah.
We have to make these, unique in some way. And so this one, you would never look back and be like, oh yeah, that one's Chicago, right? The one where you're in the neon green and blue, like industrial sewer thing. It doesn't. But I get it. Like, that's what I'm saying is like, I understand that they're just working with what they got. Like, we have all these cities. We can't make them all look the same, so we got to take some liberties and try to get creative.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so go ahead and jump into the next ones.
Yeah, that's all the races levels I've played.
Okay.
So
I can take them if you want. Okay. Let me just try and speed up a little bit. Yellowstone is another one that's very lush looking. It's got waterfalls. You go through a cave looking thing out onto a kind of cliffside or a lakeside. I like the look of this level. It's very foresty and is a good opposite to those city levels that we just did. It does have a little mini jump in it, nothing major. You go off a turbo and then come out into a field of buffalo, which looks really cool, and then some log cabins. So all in all, I think this one encapsulates most of Yellowstone. I think it's odd that they didn't include Old Faithful in the same way that like the space shuttle one, which we'll talk about in a second again. It seemed like a missed opportunity to do a big environmental thing, because like Old Faithful, like everybody knows Old Faithful, right? So, oh well, missed opportunity there. The one after this is Washington, D.C. This one's pretty interesting. It's literally just you race on the White House lawn and then cut through the White House. And that's it.
Nice.
There's a big old fountain, similar to what's at the White House, the fences and whatever that's around it. Cut through the inside with the red carpet and then back out to the back lawn. And yeah, it's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward, not super visually interesting, although it's cool to see the White House, I guess. Then it goes into the Everglades. That one is one we've talked about already, but essentially you're in a swamp. It's pretty flat, very swamp looking, and then it's got the space shuttle in the distance. Other than that, pretty much not super visually interesting in my opinion. You do kind of race through some water, and that's an interesting gimmick to it, but that's about it. And then Malibu, like we mentioned earlier, is a second level in Los Angeles, and that one is a little bit more along the beach and the cliff sides, as the real Malibu is. And you kind of go onto a boardwalk, and then to the open beach and some rocky cliffs, into a little jungle-y area, which again, Malibu's more of just a bunch of rich people mansions. So, I mean, I guess the mentality of Beverly Hills and Malibu is kind of just this tropical rich people getaway, but not a whole lot to this one. There's a random cave or I don't know, mine shaft that you drive through at the end of it, so or halfway through it. Anyway, not really sure where that is in Malibu. I've never seen it, but maybe they found something that I didn't know about. I don't know. So yeah, that wraps up Victory Vehicles. Then at that point, that's when you have to find the 4 missing car parts, because chances are you didn't find them before that point, because you wouldn't have even thought or known to look. Eventually you spend half your childhood looking for those and then end up in Frantic Finale. And that one starts off in Hawaii. And now I'm trying to remember what Hawaii looks like, if I can scrub to it really fast.
I think it's a beach level, right?
It's pretty beachy, and then it has like some sky rises, kind of like it's almost like oh my god, what's the main, like Honolulu's, is it Waikiki Beach, like that main tourist beach? I think it's very much supposed to represent that. Okay, here it is. I got it brought up. Yeah, it looks like kind of a mixture between like the Jurassic Park Island or the Lost Island, where you kind of have these tall green hills on the sides and some palm trees. There's a pretty famous observatory in Hawaii, I'm pretty sure, and that's represented there.
Yeah.
This one, the music is also unique. It's kind of got a like that twangy ukulele sound. I'm not sure.
Like slide guitar.
Yeah, slide guitar.
I think
that's
what you're talking about.
This one has a similar event to what they could have literally just copy pasted for Old Faithful. It's got a volcano that erupts offshore.
Come on, Rare.
Yeah,
Jeez,
lazy.
just copy and paste it, man.
Gosh. Control save as. Jeez. Anyway, so it not a bad level. I like it. It's visually interesting. It's definitely more challenging. There's like coconuts that fall off the palm trees and will knock you off course, and some other little things like sticking up, and some puddles that can slow you down. So there's a lot of zigging and zagging through otherwise open areas that kind of add to the challenge, and I think it's the reason that this is a later level. There's also some real hard hairpin turns right around that volcano. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we move into Oregon, which is where I live now. So another one dear to my heart. This one is another interesting one. It's got like a cave system, which for mine, I don't know. Oregon does have some caves, so I'll give them that. And then like the forest, the Oregon kind of forest around the Cascade Mountains or Mount Hood. Yeah, looks like it, I'd say. It looks a little tropical, maybe a little more tropical than it should, but I think it just might be a limitation of the graphics. Other than that, not super interesting. You spend a lot of the level just going through the jungle. Kind of reminds me of the DK jungle level in Mario Kart 64 a little bit. And then the end of this level, you end up going over a lake on a really narrow boardwalk. And that's actually pretty challenging. I fall off of that a lot.
Yeah, that looks hard.
Yeah. And then back into the cave. So, yeah, not super iconic. Not that the state of Oregon is. I think the Oregon coast is more iconic and like Haystack Rock, but you know, what can you do? Rare missed an opportunity to do a little Goonies reference.
Yeah, right.
All right, 2 more levels. And so the next one's Texas, which you don't mess with.
Try it.
This one's got some some hay fields with some bales of hay. It doesn't really look as arid as Texas. It's a little more lush, although there are parts of Texas that are like that. It's a very big state. And some like rocky hillsides. So I don't know. There's that.
Yeah. It's not flat enough for Texas.
Right? That's what I was thinking. Some perilous cliff sides, some difficult, and there's an oil field at the halfway point of the level, which is pretty cool. I mean, Texas is definitely known for oil. And then you like go into an oil refinery, into the pipes and all that. So visually, it's pretty cool. And you see like oil dripping out of the ceiling at one point. And,
nice.
Yeah. So you get the cliches covered. You got the farm. You've got the oil, and then you've kind of got one that's not really a cliche, which is the cliff sides of Texas, which I again am not super familiar with. So. That's okay. And then the last level is Colorado. This one's actually pretty good. It's a snow level that's a little bit more perilous than the Alaska level, which is completely enclosed. This one has lots of drop-offs and sharp corners over cliffs, some fog and some snow to where it looks a little foreboding, like you're going into a blizzard.
Yeah.
The background is pretty generic, just kind of the Rockies, but it's not bad. It's a pretty good course, pretty tough course.
It looks hard, dude.
Yeah, it is. At one point you go under a ski lift, which Aspen, so very Colorado-y. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That covers all the levels. There's a good variety. I think, like you said earlier, they occasionally didn't know what to do and just kind of made stuff up. So
yeah,
that's okay. I think overall they did a pretty darn good job representing the breadth of the United States and like all the different environments. If you really think about it, it's like how many different climates are in this game.
Yeah, and that's a lot of levels, dude.
It really is. Yeah,
I don't know what that totals out to, 20, but that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a great amount. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I don't think there's too much more to talk about. You want to go into your final thoughts? I guess there's some multiplayer. Real quick, some multiplayer, some time trial modes. Multiplayer. There's like 4 more courses that are based on the other courses, so like a dockyard, a White House, just a standard arena, and then a steamboat, like Steamboat Willie, I think. Anyway, not a whole lot to that. It's pretty bare bones. But we can go into final thoughts now.
Yeah, so my final thoughts, this is a good game. It's probably, I wouldn't prefer this over Diddy Kong Racing or Mario Kart 64, but it's a close number 3 for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it does it well, what it does. There's just not a lot to make this more unique than those other two games.
Right.
Maybe there's something, but honestly, I don't know what it would be.
It's really just the Disney
like,
license is it.
Right.
To me.
And the most unique thing is them interacting with each other. I would say that's probably its strongest thing. And even that, a lot of people find to be annoying, which I can see.
Yeah.
And so, whereas, Diddy Kong has a list of things that people could argue it does better or is at least different
Offers
than
new
Mario Kart.
Yep.
Yeah, this just doesn't really offer a whole lot that those two don't cover.
Right.
Still a fun game, still controls really well, and you can still have a lot of fun with it. If you're a fan of Disney games, hopefully you are if you're listening to this. It's a good one to have.
Yeah.
It's not really going to expand your like Mickey lore or make you feel like you know the characters any better, because they're driving around cities that we live in, and so it's interesting for that, I guess, alone, just because it's kind of a unique, I guess, plot idea. So music's okay, visuals are good, and but it's really not, it wasn't like pulling my teeth out to play it or anything. Like I had a good time with it, and I see why you like it. So I think that's kind of what my final thoughts are.
Totally. Mine are really not super different from that, even though I kind of have the nostalgia factor with it. I agree, it's not as good as Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing. In my opinion, Diddy Kong is the better kart racer on the N64. A lot of people will debate that with Mario Kart, and it's fine. I just like that Diddy Kong Racing has planes and hovercrafts, honestly. Like, that's the big thing. And then the overworld. This game is a step backwards from that. So as a Rare fan, like, I was a little disappointed in that. I expected a little bit more. As a Disney fan, I think it offers a lot, just as far as sticking true to the characters, the art style, the voice acting, all that. So that's all fine. Music could have been better, but it's okay. In the grand scheme, it's a good, solid racer. And like you said, definitely one, if you're interested in Disney and want to play a good racer, this is definitely one to play.
Definitely.
So, yeah, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. We thank you all for joining us this week. And if you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter at mouse_bytes, BYTES. From there, you can find links to all of our episodes and all that good stuff. Have we decided on our next game yet?
You know what? I just realized that we have not.
Yeah, I just realized that too.
But as soon as we get done recording this, we're going to real quickly kind of sketch out our next few episodes. So, so we don't know yet, but we will we'll have another game for the next episode. So, but also one last thing I wanted to mention. We've officially announced now, as of recording this, that we have our new hosting that we're going through, and kind of teamed up with a group of people. It's a website called Nintendo Village, and their website is www.thenintendovillage.com, and you can go there. There's a number of different shows hosted there as well. They also review Nintendo games, and so we're not completely a strictly Nintendo show here at Mouse Bytes, but honestly the majority of the games that we do cover are usually on a Nintendo console, and so they were gracious enough to allow us to come on and host our episodes. So we're now officially back up on iTunes. We do have a new feed. So the old one will not work anymore. So if you subscribed that way, you'll have to find a different way. But if you're listening to this, you're probably have already found that. But if somehow you're not listening to it this way, just search for us. Mouse Bytes on iTunes. Eventually, I think we'll be back up on YouTube. But as of right now, that's the only way you can get these new episodes. So, But yeah, and you can go to our website and it has links to all that stuff as well. So, but yeah, so we'll be there from now on, and things should be moving smoothly forward from there. So
Totally.
it's exciting stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm excited about that collaboration. So, yeah, thank you all for bearing with us as we kind of went through a little bit of a transitional phase there at the end of last year and beginning of this year. But
yeah,
with that, I think we'll wrap up, and we hope that you all keep the pedal to the metal and keep on racing, and have a good one.
see you guys.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, check out some of our other videos, and visit thenintendovillage.com, your home for everything Nintendo.